There are moments in the Christian world when a single comment, just a single public sentence, triggers an earthquake of reactions across the internet. A ripple that becomes a wave, and a wave that quickly transforms into a storm. And today's storm has one name at the center of it: Bishop Patrick Wooden. Once again, he has stepped into the spotlight not for fame, not for applause, but for what he claims is a biblical responsibility. A responsibility to defend the faith, confront false teaching, and correct what he calls public theological error. But here's the twist: while thousands support him, others are calling him out, accusing him of injecting himself into matters that aren't his business. And then there's Yolanda Adams, a respected gospel icon whose comments about the gender of God have reignited a fire that refuses to die down. This is more than drama. This is more than controversy. This is a moment that exposes the tension between culture and Christianity, tradition and modern theology, silence and responsibility. And trust me, you're going to want to hear where this story leads. Asterisk. The situation began with a seemingly simple comment from Yolanda Adams. During a public appearance, she made a statement regarding the gender of God, a statement that leaned toward modern theological interpretation, suggesting that God should not be confined to human gender categories. Now, for many Christians, especially those influenced by contemporary thought, her words sounded harmless, maybe even progressive. But for traditional believers, especially those rooted in literal interpretations of Scripture, this was alarming. It wasn't merely a comment. It was something that could shift the beliefs of thousands. That's when the familiar voice of Bishop Patrick Wooden emerged, firm and unshaken, known for his unapologetically conservative stance. Bishop Wooden addressed her statement publicly, expressing concern that her words could lead believers astray. For him, this was not celebrity gossip or a petty disagreement. This was theological responsibility. And when he spoke, thousands listened. But soon after, a viewer criticized him harshly, claiming that Bishop Wooden was inserting himself into something he didn't need to be part of. According to the critic, Wooden's involvement was unnecessary, divisive, and overly confrontational. Instead of ignoring the comment, Bishop Wooden came forward once again, this time with even more intensity. He explained that pastors are not only permitted to defend biblical teaching, they are commanded to. His response was not defensive. It was deeply theological. He quoted biblical principles, reminding Christians that leaders are shepherds meant to protect their flock from doctrinal confusion. He argued that when public figures with massive influence speak publicly about God, pastors must speak publicly too. Silence, he emphasized, is not humility. Silence is negligence. And in his view, when a celebrity speaks on theology, they step into a realm that demands accountability. Wooden questioned why so many pastors, especially those who claim to defend biblical truth, remained silent when this issue arose. Was it fear? Was it convenience? Or was it the pressure to stay culturally relevant? As this conversation spread across social media, the divide grew sharper. Supporters praised Bishop Wooden for his bravery. Critics accused him of being judgmental, harsh, and out of touch. But regardless of the opinions swirling around him, the intensity of the moment only continued to rise. And this was just the beginning. Asterisk. To truly understand the weight of this controversy, we have to step back and look at the bigger picture. This is not simply about Yolanda Adams. This is not even just about Bishop Wooden. This is about the future of theology, in a world where every voice, especially celebrity voices, has the power to shape faith. Today, Christianity stands in a unique moment in history. Social media has made ideas spread faster than ever before. A single statement from a public figure can influence millions, often without context or clarity. And that's exactly why Bishop Wooden believes pastors must speak out. He argues that theological ideas, especially those related to the nature of God, are not casual subjects. They're foundational. They shape how Christians worship, pray, and understand their relationship with God. When Yolanda Adams suggested that God's gender shouldn't be confined, Bishop Wooden interpreted it as a potential challenge to centuries of biblical teaching, whether people agreed with him or not. His concern was rooted in the responsibility of spiritual leadership. But the controversy goes beyond that. It raises an important question. What happens when Christian celebrities express ideas that differ from traditional doctrine? Are pastors supposed to stay silent to avoid offending fans? Or should they respond publicly to protect theological clarity? In today's landscape, theology doesn't stay inside churches anymore. It's on TikTok, on podcasts, on Instagram Reels, on YouTube Shorts, and in celebrity interviews. Everyone is teaching something, even if unintentionally. And because of that, the line between influence and instruction has blurred. Bishop Wooden believes that when public comments mix with theology, they no longer belong to private interpretation. They become a matter of public responsibility. This debate also touches on another sensitive issue, the modern reinterpretation of God. Many progressive Christians argue that gendered language for God is symbolic, while traditional believers insist that Scripture uses He intentionally and meaningfully. This clash represents the broader tension between evolving theology and historical doctrine. And when these two collide, it creates conflict that cannot be ignored. Perhaps the most important part of this controversy is the silence of other pastors. Bishop Wooden expressed disappointment that many Christian leaders didn't respond at all. In his eyes, this silence isn't Unitide's compromise. He warns that every time the church stays silent in moments of theological confusion, it hands cultural authority to celebrities instead of Scripture. And that leads to the final, biggest question: who defines truth culture or the Bible? This moment forces the Christian community to wrestle with that question publicly. Whether one agrees with Bishop Wooden or not, he has forced the conversation into the open. And it's a conversation that can shape the future of Christian doctrine. Asterisk, as the controversy continues to grow, it's clear that this moment is more than just a debate between two public figures. This is a cultural turning point. The church is no longer isolated from public discourse. Every theological idea, every interpretation, and every disagreement becomes a part of the online ecosystem. The walls of the church have become transparent. Social media has turned pastors into public educators, celebrities into accidental theologians, and believers into critics and commentators. This shift means that the responsibility of spiritual leaders has increased dramatically. Bishop Wooden insists that pastors must adapt to this new reality. They cannot remain silent when public theology goes viral. They cannot hide behind the excuse of not wanting division, because in his view, avoiding division often allows confusion to grow. And when confusion grows, faith weakens. He also warns that the church must be careful not to let the desire for cultural acceptance undermine the authority of Scripture. The pressure to fit into modern trends, inclusive language, and contemporary interpretations can sometimes overshadow biblical foundations. And once foundational truths are blurred, he argues, everything else becomes negotiable. This moment also reveals the complex relationship between celebrity Christianity and traditional faith. For many believers, gospel artists and Christian influencers become spiritual guides without realizing it. Their words carry emotional weight. Their opinions shape worldview. Their statements often feel more relatable than those of theologians or pastors. But when these celebrities express theological ideas, intentionally or unintentionally, they influence the spiritual direction of millions. This is the world we live in now. And finally, this controversy forces every believer to confront the reality of modern faith. Christianity is no longer simply inherited, it must be chosen, defended, and understood in a world that challenges it constantly. Bishop Wooden stands firm in his belief that truth must be confronted publicly when confusion is public. For him, his response is not an attack, it's an act of protection. In his closing thoughts, he emphasizes that he didn't speak out because he wanted to. He spoke out because he believes he had to. Whether people agree with him or not, he has made one thing clear: silence in moments of spiritual confusion is not an option. And as long as he believes the faith is being misrepresented, he will continue to speak out boldly, passionately, and unapologetically. As this controversy continues to unfold, something much deeper begins to emerge. Something that goes beyond Bishop Wooden, beyond Yolanda Adams, and beyond the immediate debate itself. We are witnessing a transformation in how truth is understood, challenged, and defended in the digital age. Today's world is louder, faster, and far more opinion-driven than any era before it. A single clip taken out of context can shape a narrative. A comment made in a casual interview can suddenly become a theological statement. And a disagreement between two believers can instantly become a worldwide spectacle. In this environment, the question is no longer simply who said what. The real question is, how should truth be handled when millions of eyes are watching? Bishop Wooden argues that the church cannot afford to be passive or silent. He believes that the digital age demands a new kind of spiritual alertness because misinformation travels faster than ever, and confusion spreads with a single swipe. From his perspective, believers must be equipped not just to feel spiritual, but to understand their doctrine deeply, and leaders must be more vigilant than ever before, because the digital pulpit is louder than the physical one. But this modern battlefield isn't only about what is true, it's also about who people trust. More than ever, Christians, especially younger ones, turn to celebrities, influencers, and entertainers for spiritual guidance without even realizing it. A gospel singer, an actor, a motivational speaker, or a social media personality can suddenly become a theological voice in their lives. And when those voices offer interpretations that feel fresh, inclusive, or appealing, it becomes easy to overlook whether those interpretations are actually biblical. This, Bishop Wooden warns, is where danger begins. Not because these public figures are malicious, but because influence without theological responsibility can mislead unintentionally. And when millions admire someone's talent, they often accept their beliefs without question. That subtle shift from admiration to authority is where the church risks losing its doctrinal grounding. At the same time, critics argue that too much correction creates hostility within the Christian community. They believe calling out public figures publicly makes the church look divided, aggressive, or ungracious. They question whether confronting every issue is necessary or whether it pushes people away from the faith rather than drawing them in. And here lies the heart of the struggle: balancing grace with truth, unity with clarity, influence with accountability. This tension is not new. It has existed for centuries. But the digital age has magnified it to an unprecedented level. What once would have been a private conversation between leaders now becomes a global debate. What once required theological education now requires a trending hashtag. The stakes have changed, and so has the battlefield. Bishop Wooden's stance forces every believer to reflect on their role in this new landscape. Are Christians consuming theology without thinking? Are they shaping their faith based on personality rather than Scripture? Are they silently allowing cultural pressures to rewrite biblical foundations? And are pastors fully aware of how powerful public voices have become? Part 4 reveals something essential. This controversy is not a temporary clash. It is a symptom of something larger, a growing divide between biblical authority and cultural influence, between ancient truth and modern interpretation, between traditional pastors and public figures who unintentionally become teachers. This moment is a reminder that truth must be guarded intentionally. It must be studied, taught, and defended with wisdom, humility, and courage. Whether one agrees with Bishop Wooden or not, his message challenges believers to examine their spiritual foundation. And perhaps that is the lesson this controversy was always meant to reveal, that in a digital world filled with countless voices, the search for truth has never been more important and never more difficult.